Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of our conversations. My name is Ondiro Oganga. I am a business journalist by profession and a digital content creator. I love coming on here, having conversations with you guys on, Africa, Black people, our empowerment and how we can rise up and take our rightful place at the global stage. It's BRICS weeks, so all the content that is coming from me and coming from this side of the continent will be about BRICS. We're seeing heads of states beginning to streaming, and this afternoon, as I was recording this, the president of China, Xi Jinping, landed in South Africa. He was received by the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. And just even before we get into what they discussed, I want us to just take a moment and talk about the significance of Xi Jinping making way and coming to South Africa, flying all the way down here. And he says it's not the first, the second, or the third time he's coming here. He's been here several times. Now, of late, South Africa has been on the news, and not for good terms, because there was a lot of pressure and questions on what South Africa was going to do with regards to Putin, and South Africa almost had their horns tied behind their back because they didn't know what the right answer was. And so it's almost like they began looking like a joke in the name of hosting BRICS. There has also been a lot of talk, particularly negative PR surrounding BRICS, people and experts, very revered people, saying BRICS is just all about talk, nothing tangible, substantial is coming out of BRICS. And it's a breath of fresh air to see leaders validate the essence and the importance of BRICS by showing up. Yes, Vladimir Putin could not show up, but Xi Jinping, the president of China, I'm going to show up because BRICS is not a joke. If anything, it is a real threat to the West. And if anything, it's a worthy competitor, and the promise that it poses for the member states and even just the global economy is really great. So I think it was very important for Xi Jinping to show up. Also, I think the president of Brazil has already landed. Narendra Modi is already here. So it's just fantastic to see these leaders jet into South Africa and validate the essence and the importance of BRICS. Now, since the president of China landed, he had a joint press briefing with the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and I followed up on it just to pick a few points that might stand out. And what struck me a lot is the fact that South Africa is not shy to call China their friend. Now, we'll get to that part in a minute, but if you know the history of the West in China, they're not the biggest fans of China. China has been accused of trying to win over Africa's trust and Africa's influence by pumping money onto the continent. And China is guilty as charged because they've been pumping money into the African continent in terms of loans and in terms of development aid. A lot of infrastructural projects on the continent have been funded by China, some as grants, some on loan. And it's very controversial because most of these countries that China freely gives money to has no means to pay, no means whatsoever. If you sit down and do the math, some of these countries have no means to pay. Take Kenya, for example. They have a big Chinese debt, and right now, revenue to the revenue that they're raising vis-a-vis the loans that they're paying, all the revenue that they're raising is going into repaying the interest of the loans that Kenya has borrowed. Yet you'll find that China is still doing business with Kenya. China is still lending them money, And so the West has been saying, what is your deal here? What is your deal here? Because something has to give at the end of the day. But China has always maintained that its intentions of the continent are pure, which is pure in quotes because nothing is ever free. But also, China says, if you have a problem with us giving money, you can match the same money, and then Africans can decide whose money they're going to choose. And I'm expounding on this point because it's something that President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke about in just lauding China by saying, thank you very much for bailing South Africa and many African countries when they were in the middle of a financial crisis, And this is not something to be taken lightly because many African countries are currently drowning because the money has run dry and they're not making any money locally.
And President Xi gave consideration to this, and when we next met, he then, over online meetings as we were having, was able to announce a number of measures and packages to assist those African countries that had enormous debt. This is something we will never forget, that it was at a dangerous time, and we had a friend in need, and we had a friend indeed. We thank you, President Xi, for the acts of solidarity and generosity at a much, much dangerous time.
It's also not a secret that South Africa is really struggling. It's having challenges with power, and there's an energy crisis. They've gone through different levels of load shedding, from level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have gone for 2 hours, 3 hours, up to 8 hours of no electricity in a day. And this is because of infrastructural challenges. They do not have proper infrastructure, and they're not generating enough energy. It's also very important to know that South Africa does not generate a lot of renewable energy. For a long time, they depended on coal. And, you know, coal also comes with its own disadvantages, because right now, the globe or the world, we are moving towards green energy, clean energy. And there've been a lot of push and pull with countries, big countries and big economies, putting pressure on South Africa to do a transition. But South Africa maintains that a transition has to be just, and it has to be gradual and procedural. And so President Cyril Ramaphosa goes ahead to thank President Xi Jinping for his support and helping South Africans when they had an energy crisis.
South Africa deeply appreciates China's support in addressing our current energy challenges as well. This includes the donation of emergency power equipment worth 170 million and availing a grant of approximately 500 million as development assistance. Chinese companies, encouraged by your government and by you, especially President Xi, responded with enthusiasm to our investment drive, which has raised more than 1.5 trillion rand in investment commitments over the last 5 years.
I think one of the things that also stood out for me is the fact that President Cyril Ramaphosa maintains that their relationship with China is not one-sided, as the West might want the rest of the world to think, or as people might perceive that Africans just go to China to beg for money. There's so much more. That relationship is multi-dynamic. There's a lot that Africa gains from China, and there are also things that China gains from Africa outside of mineral resources.
South Africa maintains high-level cooperation with China in a number of areas. These include, but not limited to, politics, to trade, to investment, to infrastructure development, to science and technology, innovation, and education. Energy cooperation with China is a recent development that we look to deepen, particularly in line with our respective commitments to low-carbon, climate-resilient development. This year has seen the resumption of in-person engagements at the various levels of our structured bilateral mechanisms. Examples of this is the strategic dialogue that took place in Beijing in May, the high-level people-to-people exchange mechanism in Cape Town in February, the binational commission that we have. At the moment, China is South Africa's largest global trading partner. South Africa is also China's biggest trading partner in Africa and an important destination for Chinese investment in Africa. Our bilateral trade has grown exponentially from less than 1 billion rand in 1998 to over 614 billion rand in 2022.
Well, President Xi Jinping spoke, and he spoke really well. I really loved how he spoke. He was just very keen to maintain that South Africa are friends with China, and China is also a friend to South Africa, and they'll keep supporting each other in any and the best ways possible.
Good relations and a strong bond of friendship is that our two countries and political authorities have been sharing will and wool of development, connected by the deep bond as comrades and brothers. Now standing at a new historic starting point, it is our shared aspiration to carry forward this friendship, deepen cooperation, and step coordination. This is also what is asked of us by our times, ready to make joint efforts with President Ramaphosa to take our comprehensive strategic partnership to new heights. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That's all I had for you in this episode. We'll continue covering. Tomorrow there'll be heads of state speaking. I'll be keeping tabs on that. Whatever Cyril Ramaphosa say, whatever Narendra Modi say, whatever the president of Brazil say, whatever Xi Jinping says, I'll be here to tell you how it goes and give you bold, accurate, and objective commentary. I'll see you again.